Rain hit the cracked concrete like gunfire. She tightened her grip on the colonel's vest, legs burning, lungs clawing for air as another round cracked past her ear. Mud sucked at her boots, and the hill ahead rose like a dare-steep slick, and littered with jagged rock. He was dead weight in her arms. Conscious maybe, maybe not. Didn't matter, she wasn't putting him down. Cassidy Vale was small. Too small. That's what they always said. Fragile. Sweet face, soft voice, too much damn empathy. Not built for this world, but she had him, 6 miles. And she would carry him through hell if that's what it took. Your pack's too loose, Sergeant. Hagen barked, not even looking up from his clipboard. Cassidy adjusted the strap with a practiced yank. The fabric bit into her shoulder. 48 pounds. She knew every ounce by feel. Still too loose. You'll lose your balance on uneven terrain. Behind her, the others waited in line, broad-chested, tall, loud. The kind of men who called her Bambi, behind her back, and asked if she needed help tying her boots. Cassidy exhaled through her nose and tightened the side strap. Hagen finally glanced up. His eyes skimmed her frame, searching for a weak point. "That'll do, barely." She said nothing. He marked the clipboard and pointed toward the course. "You're up." The obstacle run cut through 3 miles of uneven hillside, rigged with ropes, ditches, false trails, and trenches deep enough to eat you whole. Designed by sadists, perfected by time. Every year, at least one recruit sprained something. Or quit. Cassidy hit the trail hard. The first slope tried to eat her knees. The rope swing sent her spinning. But she moved like a ghost, quiet, coiled, hyper-aware. She counted steps between breaths. Let momentum do half the work. When her boot slipped, she caught herself without breaking rhythm. When her pack shifted, she rolled with it. She didn't fight the terrain. She read it. She cleared the course 4th, not 1st. But ahead of 8 others, all of them heavier, louder, and now drenched in sweat and ego. She didn't smile. Just unbuckled the pack and dropped it next to the med tent. "Hey," a voice muttered behind her. "You cheat or something." Cassidy didn't turn. She knelt beside the tent and started folding the spare gauze strips by habit, because she was more than a recruit. She was a licensed trauma tech, paramedic, wildland fire responder. 10 years experience across 3 continents. None of that made the file. It didn't need to. This wasn't about proving herself. This was about being where she needed to be. Drop it if you've ever been underestimated. Drop it if someone's ever mistaken your kindness for weakness. The first call came in 2 days later. A joint operation had gone sideways. Details classified. 1 casualty confirmed. 3 others missing. Extraction team rerouted. 1 medic embedded, but compromised. They needed a rapid response extraction and a field medic. Hagen stood in front of the assembled recruits, expression grim. "We're pulling 2 from this group, volunteers only. But make no mistake, this is not a drill. It's live fire, high risk." Cassidy raised her hand before he finished speaking. Every head turned. Half of them smirking. 1 or 2 just shaking theirs in disbelief. Hagen stared at her. "You sure?" "Unsure." He looked at the rest. 1 more. Baker stepped forward, solid, reliable. He nodded once. "Suit up, wheels up in 30. Cassidy moved fast. Not frantic, focused. Her pack was already prepped. Triage kit. Clotting agent, syringes, saline, chest seals, morphine. 1 compact trauma bag with handwritten notes on every pocket. Her boots were already laced. They lifted off just past sunset. And the jungle swallowed them whole. The extraction point was a gravel clearing beneath a half-crumbled ridgeline. Smoke coiled in the distance. The birds had stopped calling. Cassidy checked her radio. No static, no signal. No instructions. They moved. They found the down squad inside the hour. 2 were already gone. 1. Lieutenant Sims was stable, but shell-shocked. He pointed deeper into the trees. Colonels hit. They dragged him that way. Dragged. Alive then. Cassidy looked at Baker. We move now. He hesitated. Wait for backup. No time. She moved. And in the clearing past the ravine, under cover of thick brush, they found him. Colonel Ryder, bleeding from a torn leg, gasping through cracked ribs, one eye swollen shut. Still conscious, Cassidy dropped to her knees and went to work. Gunfire started again. 10 minutes later, backup wasn't coming. She shouldered him. And ran. Cassidy's thighs screamed by the second. Mile. She didn't stop. Branches tore her sleeves. Sweat blurred her vision. But every step was a choice. He was twice her weight in gear, and she carried him like a promise. A sharp snap to her left. She dropped to one knee, pressing him against a boulder. A figure moved, the brush weapon drawn. Not ours. She drew her sidearm, kept it low, centered her breath. The figure hesitated, blinked. Gone. She stood. Again. One more hill. Then another. The outpost came into view like a mirage. She staggered into the clearing, mud-caked, gasping, body screaming, and dropped to her knees as medics ran toward her. Colonel Ryder coughed. Hell of a medic, he rasped. Cassidy finally let herself collapse. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. Cassidy woke to silence. She was in the outpost infirmary. A cot, foredrip, her hands bandaged, bruised ribs. Nothing broken. The colonel was alive, stable, already on evac protocol. Hagen stood in the doorway. No clipboard this time. He didn't speak for a while. Then, we pulled your file. Cassidy sat up. All of it? He nodded once. You didn't list the commendations. I didn't come here for those. What did you come here for? Cassidy looked past him, through the slit window, to the tree line. For the next one. Rain hit the roof of the outpost like steady drumfire. Cassidy sat up, ribs tight, shoulder aching. Her fingers flexed against the bandages without thinking. Phantom weight lingered where the colonel's bulk had pressed into her back. The med team had patched her up, sure, but rest wasn't in her wiring. Across the room, her uniform hung from a hook, stained, torn, but intact. A nurse walked in carrying a tablet. Young buzzcut, nervous. Your release was cleared, but you, Hagen left a note. Cassidy raised a brow. He handed over the tablet. On it, return to training yard. Optional. She stood and made it anything but optional. The yard was quiet at dawn. Most of the others still slept, their routines paused out of respect or disbelief. But Cassidy was there, already lacing up new boots, the sole tread stiff and unfamiliar. Baker jogged by with a nod, slower than usual. A cut above his right brow. Figured you'd sleep a week, he muttered. Cassidy pulled the strap tight on her vest. Figured wrong, he laughed. They're calling you Colonel Moole now. She didn't flinch. I've heard worse. He slowed. You carried him 6 miles, Cass. Because I had to, still. He hesitated. Some of them. Get it now. She looked him dead in the eye. I don't need them to get it. I need them to move when I say move. He nodded. And jogged off. Hagen watched from the edge of the yard. He didn't interrupt. Not yet. Just observed. She was doing ladder drills in the heat, sweat already beading. She pushed past the pain, not out of bravado. Out of preparation. He finally approached, stepping into her path. Vale, she stopped. Sir, new orders came through. She wiped her brow. Am I being reassigned? To Joint Training Command Delta Facility, tomorrow. Cassidy's eyes narrowed. Why? Because you scared the hell out of someone important. They want to know what makes you tick. Cassidy didn't answer. Just resumed her drill. Drop a, if you know what it means to be tested. Drop a, if you've ever had to prove yourself the hard way. Delta was different. Bigger compound. Tighter protocols. Sharper eyes. No friendly nods here, just scans, silence, and coded directives. Cassidy's bunk was Spartan. Steel frame, 1. Locker, no window. She didn't mind. What did get her attention was the rotation schedule. Joint Special Operations. Level 6 clearance only. She shouldn't have had access, and yet she was cleared. The training wasn't just harder. It was smarter. Instead of obstacle runs, there were extraction simulations with live actors. Instead of rucking through the woods, they were dropped into mock zones full of smoke, staged casualties, unpredictable tech glitches, and deliberately unhelpful teammates. Cassidy didn't stand out by brute force. She stood out by precision. In the 3rd week, a test scenario went wrong. She and a squad of 4 were tasked with stabilizing an injured pilot in a compromised field zone. But the terrain was booby-trapped. The pilot was a live actor, but the blood was real. Someone hadn't followed safety protocol. Cassidy was first to the downed pilot. Pressure dressing. Splint. Then she yelled, "We need evac," only to realize no one had secured the perimeter. 2 squad mates had wandered off. The 3rd was frozen. The 4th was watching her. "Why aren't you panicking?" he asked. "Because it won't stop the bleeding." She finished the splint and shouldered the actor. Again. 600 yards to the evac point. Uphill. She moved. The sim commander was waiting at the top. "You were supposed to lead, not haul." Cassidy dropped the pilot gently. Leadership's what got him this far alive. The commander blinked. "You're not wrong." He handed her a file. Her name was on it, but the logo wasn't standard. Red triangle, black background. One word, Spectre. It was an invitation. Unofficial. A test within the test. Spectre wasn't in any public register. Not military. Not exactly. It operated under a mix of Joint Command directives, private funding, and undisclosed oversight. No one volunteered. You were watched, then approached, and you didn't say no. They flew her out in a blacked-out VTOL. No windows. No coordinates. No briefing. Only when they landed did she see the terrain. Alpine slopes. Dense pine, a compound dug into the earth like a hidden bunker. Inside, labs, armories, silence. She was assigned a single handler. Cody name, Rook. "You're not here to become one of us," he said. "You're here to see if you already are." 1st week, silence. 2nd week, exposure tests, heat, cold, dehydration, memory disruption. 3rd week, psychological pressure, ethical traps, simulated failures. They mimicked betrayal. Set her up to fail. Faked rescue missions that ended in chaos. Fed her lies. Took her sleep. Cassidy didn't break. She adapted. When they staged an infiltration and gave her bad intel, she rerouted the op without orders. When they planted a civilian who turned violent, she neutralized without lethal force. When they tried to bait her into disobeying medical oath, she found a 3rd way. By the 6th week, Rook handed her a black badge. "Still think you're just a medic?" Cassidy stared at the badge. "No, but I'll always be one." "Good, we need both." They deployed her. Real op. Real stakes. And earthquake zone near a disputed border. No UN access. Local factions hostile. Communications down. She inserted with a 3-man team. Only one had field medic experience. The rest followed her lead. The village was in ruins. Collapsed. Buildings, fires, screens. Mines left over from a decade-old conflict. Cassidy moved through the rubble like a phantom. 3 hours in, she saved a child pinned under beams. 4 hours. Stabilized a soldier with a punctured lung. 5th hour. They hit a booby-trap. Team down. Cassidy was bleeding. Still, she dragged the first man to cover, treated herself with one hand, then moved to the second. Backup came 6 hours later. She was the one directing triage when they arrived. The commander blinked at her. "How are you still up?" Cassidy looked at her watch. Didn't finish the mission yet. When she returned to the compound, The Spectre board offered her full clearance. She accepted on one condition. I want to go back. Where? They asked. To the ones who still think I'm fragile. To be continued. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. Snow fell like ash. Cassidy stepped off the VTOL ramp into a ghosted field. The wind knifed through her coat, whispering of old wars and older betrayals. The air smelled like diesel and bone. She was back. Not to Spectre. Not to Delta. But to the original training compound. The place they'd first called her fragile. Only now she wasn't here to learn. She was here to teach. Is that her? Cassidy heard it as she passed the fresh batch of recruits. Whispers. Quick looks. Disbelief wrapped in awe. She's smaller than I thought. That's the one who dragged a colonel uphill under fire? I heard she doesn't sleep. Someone said she stitched herself mid-op. She ignored them all. Inside, Hagen was waiting. He didn't salute, just offered a short nod. They said you were coming. I didn't believe it. Cassidy dropped her pack. You still running the course? He nodded. New blood every month. Same bruises. She tilted her head. You got a squad that's ready for pain? He smirked. Always. Then let's begin. She didn't wear rank. Didn't need to. Her authority was in her precision. In the way she set up the field station. Everything labeled. Reachable in the dark. The way she spotted a mispacked medkit in 30 seconds. The way she asked a trainee one question. What do you do when your tourniquet fails? And then made him demonstrate, blindfolded, with his non-dominant hand. The others watched. No one laughed. She ran them through scenarios Spectre had given her without attribution. Mass casualty drills in rain. Zero light navigation. Improvised evacuation, using only what's in your vest. They sweated, bled. And began to shut up and listen. Drop a if you've ever been doubted before you even spoke. Drop E if you know pressure can sharpen people or break them. On the third day, she was summoned. Hagen handed her a red envelope. Didn't know we still used paper. He said. She broke the seal. Coordinates. CIPHERED signature. Spectre clearance code. She packed in under 10 minutes. No questions. She left the recruits mid-drill. The location was cold. Arctic, maybe. Mountains jagged like teeth. She met her new handler Calcine. Torch. He didn't bother with pleasantries. Satellite went dark over a restricted valley. Local assets lost comms. One pulse came through biofeedback of an asset we didn't even know was deployed. Cassidy raised a brow. He handed her a photo. Recognize him? She did. Lieutenant Sims. The one she'd saved during the colonel. Writer op. Thought he was discharged. Thought wrong. We embedded him under a different alias. He was getting close to something. Then gone. Dead? We don't know. Which is worse? She parachuted in at midnight. Alone. Torch single quotes says last words echoed in her ear. No backup, no extraction. Just silence unless you break it. Cassidy moved with the calm of someone who'd trained for lies. The snow came up to her thighs in places. No tracks, no birds. Just the howling hush of buried secrets. The valley looked like a scar, and it bled silence. The wreckage of a small UAV was the first sign, half melted, partially eaten by frost. Black box still warm. She extracted the data core and plugged it into her encrypted reader. Static. Then, asset compromised. Do not trust. Then the file corrupted. Do not trust who? She found the outpost by scent, diesel, smoke. Melted snow had revealed an exhaust vent. She dug slow, deliberate. Found the hatch, locked. She tapped a code she shouldn't know. It opened. Inside. Dark. Too dark. A single emergency light flickered. Crates. Old tech. A cot. Dried food. Bloodstain. And a boot. Still laced. She followed the drag marks down a corridor. Doors marked in Cyrillic. Abandoned Soviet shell, maybe. Or something older, REPURPOSED. In the last room. Sims. Alive. Barely. Tied to a chair. 4 drip. Pupils blown. Bruised face. Cassidy knelt, whispered, Sims. He twitched. Don't trust. Who? He opened his mouth. But someone else answered, a voice behind her. Me. Cassidy didn't flinch. She turned slowly and saw a face she hadn't expected to see. Again. Rook. From Spectre. Smiling. To be. Continued. Drop A if you felt the chill. Drop A if you think Cassidy's about to flip the whole op. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Rook's boots echoed off the frost-laced metal floor as he stepped fully into the room. Cassidy's stance shifted an inch. Not back, not toward cover. Just tighter, centered. Didn't expect you here, she said, voice even. Rook smiled too. Calm, I could say the same. Cassidy's hand hovered near her kit. Not on a weapon, not yet. Sims needs extraction. He's been drugged, interrogated, and left to bleed out. Either you're here to help or you're the reason he's like this. Rook tilted his head. What if it's both? Her spine straightened. Start talking. He circled slowly, boots crunching ice. Spectre isn't what you think it is. You passed every trial, every stressor. And still, you chose to come back to a place like this instead of rising through the chain. Because this is where real lives get saved. Exactly, he said. That threw her for half a breath. Rook knelt near Sims, checked his pulse, nodded. We embedded him here because he had a particular instinct for finding what doesn't want to be found. He uncovered something. Cassidy's eyes flicked to Sims' lips, cracked, moving. But no sound. Rook continued. There's a break inside Spectre. 2 factions. One still believes in silent guardians. The other? Private contracts. Elimination teams. Extractions with no survivors. Cassidy's breath slowed. Which side are you on? Rook looked up. The one that called you. They carried Sims between them up the slope of the valley. No rescue beacon. No drone support. Rook had come in on foot, said the satellite grid was compromised. Likely jammed by the same tech that nearly fried Sims. Chip. Cassidy kept scanning the RIDGELINES. Too quiet. Rook finally broke the silence. We need to disappear, just long enough to wake him up. Then you'll know what this really is. Cassidy didn't answer. They made camp in a cave chiseled into the ice wall, shielded by rock. Sims stirred, moaned, eyes twitching. Cassidy mixed in 4 flush, warmed it, administered it gently. He flinched. Then spoke. Unit Echo killed. They weren't supposed to. Orders changed. Too late. Rook leaned in. Who gave the change? Sims swallowed. Not Spectre. Not top down. Cassidy watched him carefully. Then what? Sims looked at her. Private node. Ghost cell. They call it Burnhouse. Rook froze. Cassidy whispered. Burnhouse was a myth. Not anymore, Rook said. Drop A if you're ready to dig deeper. Drop A if the silence in that valley gave you chills. Burnhouse had existed only in rumor. A splintersome set of failed Spectre offshoot. Others called it a catch-pen for ops that went too dirty to justify. Assassinations, false rescues, asset sacrifices. No one had proof. Until now. Cassidy leaned over the old transmitter crate Sims had been strapped to. Her fingers found a heat sink, still warm, inside. A data shard, encrypted. Black layer. She plugged it into her sleeve console. Rook watched with narrowed eyes. Cassidy's eyes skimmed faster and faster. Flight logs, surveillance timestamps, kill order lists. Her name was on 2.2. Looks like they tried twice, she muttered. Rook read over her shoulder. One failed. Up at Delta 2 years ago. Was that you? She nodded. They flooded the lab with inert gas. Said it was a leak. I woke up first. Dragged out the 2 who didn't. He blinked. Didn't know that. No one did, not even me. Not till now. They moved before sunrise. Sims could walk barely. Cassidy looped one arm around him. Let Rook take point. They descended the ridge and hit a tree line choked with frost. That's when the first round whined past her head. Cassidy dropped flat, yanking Sims down. Rook was already moving, low and lateral. Suppressors. Multiple. Burnhouse had found them. Cassidy rolled. Drew returned fire. They weren't shooting to disable. They were shooting to clean. She clipped a shadow through the trees. The figure dropped. Rook shouted. 5 hostiles. Minimum, triangulating. Flank west, she called. Break cover in 30. He nodded, vanished. Cassidy pulled Sims behind a fallen log. Checked his wound open again. No time. She pulled a clotting pack and shoved it in. He gasped, fainted. Sorry, she whispered. Then she ran. The cliff came faster than she expected, and that was the point. She skidded to a stop, near a narrow drop 20 feet. Snow below. Cassidy lifted Sims, grit her teeth, and jumped. They hit hard, rolled. Her shoulder dislocated with a sick pop. She bit down on a scream. Pulled it back in with sheer grit. Breathe, she told herself. Move. She relocated it manually against a stump, then carried him again. They reached a burned-out ranger station by dusk, abandoned, shelled, but intact enough to hide. Rook met them there, limping. He held out a chip, took it off one of the shooters. Cassidy plugged it in. Burnhouse relay. Echo pattern. Every operation from the past 6 months. Catalog. Names. Times. Agents. And in the middle in order, marked. Priority Alpha. Op. Cassidy Violi status. Neutralized to be continued. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. The words didn't feel real. Op. Cassidy Violi status. Neutralize. Rook's jaw clenched. Cassidy stared at the line as if looking through it, beyond it, into whatever pit had made this possible. Looks like your promotion came with a target, he muttered. Cassidy unplugged the chip. I didn't sign up for survival. I signed up to do the job. Spectre's not Spectre anymore. It's not dead either, she said. So long as we aren't. Rook studied her for a long moment. Then nodded. Then we move. But no more running. Cassidy opened her med kit. Tossed him a fresh clip, then a sterile gauze roll. You bleeding? Just dignity. She smirked. You'll live. The ranger station's basement held more than mold and rot. Cassidy found the trapdoor beneath an old wood stove. Barely visible. She pried it open. Cold air wafted up. Below. A tunnel. No map. No light. But old boot tracks and dried mud. She descended. Drop. A, if you'd go into that tunnel. Drop a, if you know the dark can hold more than shadows. The tunnel ran a mile underground. A Cold War emergency conduit, judging by the rusted filtration vents and decades-old comms panels. Cassidy moved fast but silent, checking intersections, eyes adjusting to the darkness. They reached a vault door. Manual wheel lock. She rotated it slowly, wincing at the grind. Inside. Power. Old, but on. Banks of servers blinked under a layer of dust. Cassidy turned to Rook. You ever hear of HarrowNet? He paled. Data Ghost Protocol. Cold storage AI tether. It was decommissioned or repurposed. Cassidy accessed the terminal. Login prompt. She keyed in her Spectre badge code. Denied. Rook stepped forward, tried his. Also denied. Sims stirred behind them, groggy. Try my badge. Cassidy helped him over. One beep. Green light. Files decrypted. Inside. Operations tagged Burnhouse Alpha. Dozens. Asset terminations. Sabotage of humanitarian efforts. Civilian deaths written off as operational collateral. And on the personnel list people she knew. Not enemies. Mentors. Friends. A medic who trained her in Nairobi, gone. A logistics tech from Delta, Gone. Each marked asset removed. Each listed under Cassidy's approval code. She reeled. Rook put a hand on her shoulder. They're framing you. No, they're building me, he frowned. What? They're turning me into their ghost story. Burnhouse's boogeyman. For what purpose? Cassidy's eyes locked on the last file. It read, Synthetic Legacy. Protocol, Subject Veil, and below it, ETA, 72 hours to full deployment. Rook backed up. They're trying to overwrite your identity, digitally. Wipe you clean. Then use your face, your name, your methods for ops you never approved. Cassidy's voice was calm. They want a legend. One they can control. But the real Cassidy Vale won't let that happen. She turned to him. Damn right. They didn't wait. Cassidy copied the files to a shard, wiped her trace, then triggered a self-destruct code on the terminal. Sims leaned against the wall, struggling to stay upright. We can't go loud, Rook said. Burnhouse controls half the set feeds. We trigger anything above heatsig, they'll ghost us. Cassidy adjusted her pack. We go analog, ground game. Where? There's one last Spectre relay. Off-grid. Not connected to Burnhouse. Architecture. If we reach it, we can transmit this to the Oversight core. Thought Oversight was dormant. It is. But if we ping them with evidence this strong, they'll have to open the door. Rook nodded. Then let's knock. 3 days on foot. No vehicles. No air support. No digital signals. Cassidy led them through frozen valleys, narrow creeks, over ridges blanketed in old mines. One night, they camped in a collapsed cabin. Sim's fever spiked. She stayed up, sponging his forehead, muttering things from her mother's old trauma codebook. He gonna make it? Rook asked. Cassidy didn't look up. He has to. She didn't say what they both knew. Burnhouse didn't want him alive. Or her. Or Rook. On the 4th morning, the trees parted. And there it was. A black cube nestled in a glacial field. No markings, no antennae. Just a door flush with the wall and a small keypad. Cassidy approached. Last chance, Rook said. We step inside. There's no going back. Cassidy keyed in a phrase. The keypad flashed. The door opened. The Spectre relay smelled like ozone. And silence. A single chair, one console, hardened lines. No external net. Cassidy slotted the shard. Rook stood behind her. You sure they'll believe it's really you? Cassidy typed 3 words. I'm still here. The screen blinked. Then glowed. A voice came over the speakers. Female, old, steady. Vale, you're late. Cassidy exhaled. You're alive. Just. Barely. Burnhouse infected every shadow. Took Spectre's teeth and sold them. But you've brought fire. I brought proof. And what do you want in return? Cassidy looked at Rook, then at Sims. A real fight. To be continued. Droppa, if you're ready for the counterstrike. Droppa, if the idea of a synthetic legacy creeped you out. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The Spectre relay shut its outer door with a thrum that hummed in Cassidy's ribs. Inside, the silence wasn't dead, it was vigilant. Everything here was analog wrapped digital, cold forged against tampering. No cameras. No cloud. Just steel. And consequence, Rook secured the entrance while Cassidy remained at the main console. A holographic interface flickered up from the transmitter core. The woman's voice Oversight's last true guardian returned. You have 24 hours before this relay burns out. Power's degrading. Cassidy leaned in. I'll need access to everything. You'll get it. But understand this. The moment you open the full archive, they'll see you again. Cassidy nodded. Then let them. Sims slept on the med slab, his pulse steadier now. Cassidy had rigged the room with solar chemstrips, crude warmth, but effective. She sat beside him briefly. watching the rise and fall of his chest. "You didn't quit," she whispered. Then she went back to work. "Drop a if you've ever kept pushing, even when every signal said stop. Drop a if you've ever found yourself leading when no one else would." Burnhouse's network had no central brain. It was like mold growing in pockets, feeding off decayed structures. Cassidy's goal wasn't to kill it outright. It was to reveal it. She pulled their buried protocols from cold storage, schematics, name traces, command tunnels. Then she found the root stem, a subnetwork called Valkyrie_spoke_0. Inside it, her, but not just her. It was a deepfake engine. Synthetic missions run in her name. Video composites of her in fictional firestorms. Fabricated kill orders, even speeches she'd never given. The face was hers, but the woman was a puppet. Cassidy narrowed her eyes. Delete protocol won't be enough. She had to overwrite it, reclaim her identity from inside the engine itself. Rook stepped in, eyes scanning the terminal readouts. "Whatever you're planning, it'll flag everything." "I know." He stepped closer. "Then let me help." Together, they constructed a digital counterinfection, a layered payload Cassidy Cody named Origin Mirror. It didn't just destroy synthetic records. It rewrote them with traceable truth markers. Mission footage, medical logs, field evaluations, her voice, her pulse pattern, her errors, her real humanity. Not a legend, not a ghost, but a woman who had bled for every inch she'd earned. She uploaded it, and the relay trembled. An hour later, the oversight voice returned. "You're going to trigger a war inside Spectre. Are you ready for that?" Cassidy didn't flinch. "I didn't start it, but I'll damn well finish it." The voice paused. Then, "Coordinates inbound. You'll have 5 allies, maybe 6. Who? Old names, buried ones. You'll recognize a few." The screen blinked. Operation Crosshair INITIV left. The relay behind it first light. Sims, mobile again, moved slowly. Rook took rear guard. Cassidy led with the precision of someone mapping not terrain, but consequences. The meet point was an abandoned freight hub in a coastal city, long decommissioned and red zoned. When they arrived, 6 figures waited. 1 tall, sharp-eyed, wore no insignia. Cassidy blinked. "Miranda Wynn?" Wynn nodded. "Didn't think you'd recognize me. You trained me in field diagnostics in Prague," Wynn smiled. "And you outpaced me by week 2. Another figure stepped forward. "You were always more Spectre than the rest of us, Vale." Cassidy turned. "You died in Tunisia," he shrugged. "Not quite." Rook muttered. "Ghost Squad. Thought it was a rumor." Wynn chuckled. "We are rumors. Burnhouse can't kill what they think is already dead." The plan was brutal. And simple. Each node of Burnhouse had a physical core vault storing drives, hardwired for security. Cassidy would lead 2 squads, 1 for extraction. 1 for exposure. No hits. No kills, just truth, the kind that couldn't be spun, the kind that would burn clean. Drop a if you're into unraveling the web. Drop a if you think information can still be a weapon. They hit the first vault. At night. Cassidy moved like shadow. Rook took high cover. Wind cracked the analog lock. Inside, racks of data vaults and one terrified analyst who never expected anyone to breach a place like this. Cassidy didn't draw a weapon. She showed him the footage. Sims, the wounds, the orders. Her name on a kill list. The analyst blinked. Then stepped aside. They copied the drives. Left him alive. Second vault. Resistance. Burnhouse field agents. Suppressors. Drones. Cassidy went low, zigzagging through crates. Rook dropped 2 with precision darts. They breached the server room under fire. Wynn took a hit arm. Clean through. Cassidy yanked her behind cover. "You good?" Wynn smirked through blood. "It's just a scratch." They blew the vault door. With a phone charge. Inside, evidence of Operation Synthetic Legacy. Phase 3. Next targets? Half the Ghost Squad, including Cassidy's father. She hadn't spoken of him since the funeral. Hadn't even said the word sniper out loud in years. Now she saw it. A photo. Dated months after he'd supposedly died. Him, in field gear. Still alive. Rook glanced at her. You okay? Cassidy stood slowly. No, but I will be. To be continued. Drop A, if the mind games have you hooked. Drop A, if you're in it until the final shot. The file shook in her hand. Cassidy stared at the grainy photo of a man who was supposed to be a memory. Her father. Still alive. Or at least alive months ago. The file was stamped with a date only 3 months old. Operation, Glass Veil, location. Unknown, objective, behavioral reprogramming of long retired. Spectre assets. Burnhouse hadn't killed him, they'd taken him. Rook moved close. That changes things. Cassidy tucked the file into her vest. It doesn't change the mission. It changes you. She didn't argue because he was right. Back at the freight hub, Wynne was patching her wound with one hand, pulling up thermal maps with the other. We've got pings on Burnhouse movement. They're consolidating. Cassidy stepped forward. Consolidating where? Wynne tapped a red square. A location flagged as inactive for years, but it's active now. High bandwidth outflow, looks like a data upload. Rook narrowed his eyes. Upload to where? Wynne shook her head. Satellite trace dead. It's not just broadcasting, it's beaming. Cassidy's voice was ice. They're going global. Drop A, if a file changed your world. Drop us if you've ever felt a lie stretch across continents. They split into teams. Cassidy, Rook, and a scout named Tess would hit the relay site. Wynne and the others would continue seeding evidence to Oversight's safe mirrors. Every upload they complete is another ghost they make, Wynne warned. Cassidy nodded. We stop the broadcast. Then we bring the dead back to life. She meant her father and all the others. They'd buried under false flags. The insertion route was vertical. Cassidy climbed the mountainside, like her limbs had no memory of exhaustion. Rook followed without complaint, though each movement was deliberate too. Many wounds beneath his armor. Tess took point, a shadow in camo mesh, almost invisible against the rock at the summit. A dome, not concrete. Not steel, glass fiber lattice, self-healing, thermal shielded. Burnhouse tech. They approached low, crawling until Cassidy spotted the first drone. She motioned silent hand signs from a language only Spectre knew. Tess diverted left. Rook right. Cassidy slid beneath a ridge. She was 5 feet from the dome wall when she saw it. A shimmer. Not motion. Cloaked. A Burnhouse sentry. She didn't think. She moved forward. Blade in hand. The man dropped without a sound. She dragged him into shadow, took his clearance band. The dome's inner lock scanned her wrist. A pause. Then dash open. Inside. The air was colder, cleaner. Too clean, like no one inside breathed anymore. She stepped into a chamber of glass tiles and black metal, consoles blinking. And in the center a tank. Lit from below. Suspended in fluid. A man, older, still, scarred. Her father. He wasn't awake. He wasn't unconscious either. Cassidy's breath caught. Dad. He didn't move. A monitor nearby pulsed neural activity. Stable. Biofeedback consistent. Muscle retention optimal. Program running. Adaptive. Reclamation. She scanned deeper. They were overwriting parts of his memory. Imprinting new mission triggers. Creating a perfect ghost. Drop A, if you've ever feared losing what makes you you. Drop A, if you're ready to break the machine. Rook and Tess breached 2 minutes later. He froze at the tank. That's him? Cassidy nodded. Tess approached a console. Looks like the upload targets every shadow registry from Prague to DC. If this finishes, Burnhouse owns the global narrative. Cassidy's eyes stayed on her father. Can we stop the upload? Tess frowned. Yes, but There's a trigger. We kill the stream, he goes too. Cassidy's mouth dried. They gave her a choice. Let the lie spread. Or lose the one person she still hadn't said goodbye to. Rook stepped forward. There's a third way. Cassidy turned. I'll draw fire. Fake a breach. Tess pulls partial. Core backups. You pull him. Extraction? He nodded. Manual. Tank cuts in 30 seconds once triggered. We carry him out or we don't get another chance. She didn't hesitate. Do it. Rook moved first. Triggered the alarm with a blast to the eastern conduit. Alarm screamed. Lights flared. Cassidy plunged a pry bar into the tank's emergency. Release. Fluid hissed. Her father sagged. She caught him before he hit the glass. Tess shouted. 20 seconds. Cassidy ripped out the neural cables. Caught the last flash of old scars. Beneath his eye. He was heavier than she remembered. But she carried him. Anyway, Rook met them in the tunnel. Bleeding. They didn't ask where. Just ran. They made it to a snowfield extraction point with seconds to spare. Spectre. VTOL. Win aboard. She saw the man in Cassidy's arms. And froze. He's alive? Cassidy didn't answer because he opened his eyes, looked at her, and whispered, You're real. To be continued. Drop a if this mission just became personal. Drop us if you're strapped in for the next flight. The file shook in her hand. Cassidy stared at the grainy photo of a man who was supposed to be a memory, her father. Still alive. Or at least alive months ago. The file was stamped with a date only 3 months old. Operation. Glass Veil. Location. Unknown. Objective. Behavioral reprogramming of long retired. Spectre assets. Burnhouse hadn't killed him. They'd taken him. Rook moved close. That changes things. Cassidy tucked the file into her vest. It doesn't change the mission. It changes you. She didn't argue because he was right. Back at the freight hub, Wynne was patching her wound with one hand, pulling up thermal maps with the other. We've got pings on Burnhouse movement. They're consolidating. Cassidy stepped forward. Consolidating where? Wynne tapped a red square. A location flagged as inactive for years, but it's active now. High bandwidth outflow, looks like a data upload. Rook narrowed his eyes. Upload to where? Wynne shook her head. Satellite trace dead. It's not just broadcasting, it's beaming. Cassidy's voice was ice. They're going global. Drop a if a file changed your world. Drop a if you've ever felt a lie stretch across continents. They split into teams. Cassidy, Rook, and a scout named Tess would hit the relay site. Wynne and the others would continue seeding evidence to Oversight's safe mirrors. Every upload they complete is another ghost they make, Wynne warned. Cassidy nodded. We stop the broadcast. Then we bring the dead back to life. She meant her father. And all the others. They'd buried under false flags. The insertion route was vertical. Cassidy climbed the mountainside, like her limbs had no memory of exhaustion. Rook followed without complaint, though each movement was deliberate too. Many wounds beneath his armor. Tess took point. A shadow in camo mesh, almost invisible against the rock. At the summit. A dome, not concrete. Not steel. Glass fiber lattice, self-healing, thermal shielded. Burnhouse tech. They approached low, crawling until Cassidy spotted the first drone. She motioned silent hand signs from a language only Spectre knew. Tess diverted left. Rook right. Cassidy slid beneath a ridge. She was 5 feet from the dome wall when she saw it. A shimmer. Not motion. Cloaked out a Burnhouse sentry. She didn't think. She moved forward. Blade in hand. The man dropped without a sound. She dragged him into shadow. Took his clearance band. The dome's interlock scanned her wrist. A pause. Then dash open. Inside. The air was colder. Cleaner. Too clean, like no one inside breathed anymore. She stepped into a chamber of glass tiles and black metal, consoles blinking. And in the center, A tank lit from below suspended in fluid. A man, older, still. Scarred her father. He wasn't awake. He wasn't unconscious either. Cassidy's breath caught. Dad. He didn't move. A monitor nearby pulsed neural activity. Stable. Biofeedback consistent. Muscle retention optimal. Program running. Adaptive. Reclamation. She scanned deeper. They were overwriting parts of his memory. Imprinting new mission triggers. Creating a perfect ghost. Drop A if you've ever feared losing what makes you you. Drop A if you're ready to break the machine. Rook and Tess breached 2 minutes later. He froze at the tank. That's him. Cassidy nodded. Tess approached a console. Looks like the upload targets every shadow registry from Prod to DC. If this finishes, Burnhouse owns the global narrative. Cassidy's eyes stayed on her father. Can we stop the upload? Tess frowned. Yes, but there's a trigger. We kill the stream, he goes too. Cassidy's mouth dried. They gave her a choice. Let the lie spread. Or lose the one person she still hadn't said goodbye to. Rook stepped forward. There's a third way. Cassidy turned. I'll draw fire. Fake a breach. Tess pulls partial. Core backups, you pull him. Extraction? He nodded. Manual. Tank cuts in 30 seconds once triggered. We carry him out or we don't get another chance. She didn't hesitate. Do it. Rook moved first. Triggered the alarm with a blast to the eastern conduit. Alarms screamed. Lights flared. Cassidy plunged a pry bar into the tank's emergency. Release. Fluid hissed. Her father sagged. She caught him before he hit the glass. Tess shouted. 20 seconds. Cassidy ripped out the neural cables. Caught the last flash of old scars. Beneath his eye. He was heavier than she remembered, but she carried him. Anyway, Rook met them in the tunnel. Bleeding. They didn't ask where. Just ran. They made it to a snowfield extraction point with seconds to spare. Spectre. VTOL, win aboard. She saw the man in Cassidy's arms. And froze. He's alive? Cassidy didn't answer because he opened his eyes, looked at her, and whispered, You're real. To be continued. Drop A if this mission just became personal. Drop A you're strapped in for the next flight. Cassidy sat alone at the edge of the Spectre rig's open deck. Wind roaring past the steel railings, eyes fixed on the frozen horizon. 1,000 miles in every direction. Countries were waking up to what she'd forced into the light. Burnhouse had been real. And now, so was she. No more shadows. No more digital ghosts. But the cost was still rising. Inside, Rook staggered into the infirmary. Wind caught his arm before he hit the floor. A cracked rib. Torn ligaments. He waved off the stretcher. Did we get full propagation? He rasped. Cassidy appeared in the doorway. Bruised but steady. 93% before detonation. Wynn looked up from the console. That's enough. Oversight confirmed. Multiple governments have suspended their BlackNet access and initiated independent probes. And Burnhouse? Rook asked. Cassidy's lips tightened. Bleeding. But not dead, Sims added from the medbay corner. Cassidy nodded. Then we finish it. Rook said, Drop A if you've ever had to go back in for the final fight. Drop A if you know a wounded enemy can still be deadly. Spectre's cold hub flickered to life as all surviving agents linked in. 12 across 3 continents. Ghosts, scattered but still loyal. Cassidy stood before the screen. We dismantled their signal. Burned the data, gave the world enough to turn. But that won't kill Burnhouse, not entirely. Then what will? Asked Keller from Norway. Cassidy leaned forward. We hit the head, the controller cell. The architects who built the synthetic army, Wynn cut in. That cell's never been located. Cassidy tapped her console. Until now. A 3D model spun into view an offshore research vessel. Registered to a defunct biotech firm, moored in neutral waters. No transponder. but movement patterns matched old Spectre insertion ships. Its name, Solstice Drift, and it had moved within 200 miles of Cassidy's last known position, days before her first incident. "They've been watching you since before you ever put on a Spectre badge," Rook said quietly. Cassidy looked him in the eye. "Then it's time we watch them back." Preparation was silent. Rook sharpened weapons and cross-checked stealth harnesses. Wynn coordinated. Global observers, civilian data scientists, independent investigators. The kind of people who could make any sudden disappearance echo online. Cassidy reread every field note her father had left from his last solo missions notes she'd been too afraid to touch until now. He approached as she packed her medkit. "You're going without me." Cassidy looked up. "You're still recovering." "I survived worse." She paused. "They're expecting me, but they'll never expect you." His brow furrowed. "You're not asking me to stay back. I'm asking you to finish the job I start." He nodded once. Nothing more. The strike team was 4 strong. Cassidy, Rook, YZ, and Mira, Wynn's old recon partner. Recalled from deep storage where she'd been hiding under a fake ID, and a stack of burner passports. They boarded under midnight. Fog approached Solstice Drift on a converted fishing trawler. Burnhouse had layered security infrared drones, magnetic seals, biometric locks, but Spectre had trained its ghosts well. Cassidy breached first, dropped into the interior hold through a maintenance vent. The corridor smelled of antiseptic and fear. She felt it again, that prickling at the base of her skull. She wasn't just being watched, she was expected. Drop A if you've ever cracked a door that shouldn't be opened. Drop A if you've ever had to choose between justice and safety. They moved in silence. The ship's deck glistened with condensation. Metal grates moaned softly beneath boots. Lights flickered as if unsure of their duty. Cassidy led them to a server chamber, and there it was, Burnhouse's core neural net. Cabled, massive, alive. A synthetic voice spoke before anyone touched a key. "Cassidy Vale. Confirmation. Prime subject." Cassidy froze. YZ raised her weapon. "Please do not resist," the voice continued. "We require final calibration." "Final for what?" Cassidy barked. The screen behind the voice flickered on and showed her face, except older, paler, SCARLESS. Moving in perfect sync with her. Rook whispered, "It's you." "No," Cassidy said. "It's who they want me to become." A hiss sounded. Gas vents opened. "Masks!" Cassidy shouted. Too late. Rook slammed his mask down. "Yaz!" Staggered. Myra dropped. Cassidy choked back fire in her lungs, but she moved, slammed a disruptor node into the neural interface. The room lit like lightning. The voice screamed. The screen shattered. And then silence. She woke on the trawler. Rook leaned over her. "You fried their core." Cassidy blinked. "The others?" "Yaz's stable. Mira didn't make it." Cassidy closed her eyes. Then opened them. "What about the calibration signal?" Rook hesitated. "It was halfway done." "And now?" He held up a data core. "Burned. But not gone. We'll need to dig out the fragments one by one." Cassidy sat up. "We will. To be continued. Drop A if you're ready to shatter what's left. Drop A if you think identity is worth fighting for, especially when someone tries to steal it." Cassidy stood over Myra's body. They'd wrapped her in a thermal shroud, the kind meant for medical evac. It wasn't enough. Not for someone who died stopping a lie. She didn't speak. Didn't weep. Just folded her hands over Myra's chest and whispered something no one else could hear. Then she turned and walked out into the morning light, boots crunching over frost, still fresh from the sea. Burnhouse had been wounded, but it wasn't dead. Back on the Spectre rig, the command table was lit with scrolling encryption chases. Wynn looked up from her station as Cassidy entered. "They're rebooting." Cassidy dropped a rusted data shard onto the table. "Not fast enough." Rook stepped in behind her. We took their core. But they had fragments nested elsewhere. Wynne scowled. Of course they did. No one runs that much power without redundancy. Sims leaned over the railing. Then we starve them. Cassidy raised a brow. Go on. We know what they need. Access, silence, shadows. We cut those. Force them into the open. Wynne nodded. We turn off the dark. Cassidy crossed her arms. We'll need more than agents. Then we'll need a storm, Wynne said. Droppa, if you're ready to see the shadows flooded. Droppa, if you know the only way out is through. Operation Black Dawn, not a strike. Siege. The objective wasn't to hit a target, that it was to make the ground too hot for Burnhouse to stand on. Every sympathetic government contact was activated. Every Spectre sleeper embedded in intel agencies, from Brussels to Langley, was awakened. Cassidy gave the order. Leak them. In the next 4 hours, 27 fake identities burned. 13 off-book bank accounts frozen. 11 government officials placed under immediate inquiry. Burnhouse flinched, but they still had cause. That night, the rig lost power. Not from sabotage. From an overclocked transmission signal frequency modulated with malicious code designed to hijack core. Spectre failsafes. Daniel Vale, awake and back on his feet, intercepted the signal. He called Cassidy. To the lower comms deck. They found the relay backups, he said. If they patch through, they'll overwrite our remaining intel nodes. Everything we've exposed becomes corrupted. Cassidy leaned over the terminal. Where's the signal originating from? Daniel looked up. A dead zone. Droppa, if you've ever followed a signal into the abyss. Droppa, if you've stared into something and knew it. Was staring back. The Arctic Circle. No flag. No name. Just a coordinates blip in the shape of a question mark. Burnhouse. Final nest. Cassidy and Rook geared up. Daniel pulled his rifle from the vault. The same one he'd sworn to never lift again. Sims prepped the Coldbird drone, a Spectre prototype, capable of functioning in -60 conditions with stealth plating. And signal silence. They launched at dawn. No one said goodbye, because no one expected to say it twice. The zone was white, not snow. White noise. Even visual tracking failed past 500 meters. Cassidy flew manual, heartbeat steady. Rook checked instruments. Every minute. Daniel didn't speak. Just watched the horizon. When the ground appeared, it wasn't gradual. It was sudden. A plateau of glass. Black structures, triangular, sunken, like teeth. Cassidy exhaled. There it is. They landed hard. Wind shear buffeted the Coldbird, slewing it sideways. Rook steadied the landing gear while Daniel prepped countersensors. Inside the structure, dark halls, artificial warmth, the hum of data pumps deep in the foundation. They moved fast, Rook on flank. Cassidy leading. A door ahead hissed open without being touched. They stepped into a chamber lit by blacklight. A voice echoed. Cassidy Vale. Father. Ghost. She stopped. The voice was hers. Not recorded. Spoken. From a figure stepping out of the far wall. Her. But not identical face. No scars. No wear. No fire. Just an echo of her voice and none of her soul. Daniel leveled his rifle. Back, the doppelganger. Didn't flinch. I am not a threat, it said. Cassidy raised her sidearm. You're a weapon. The figure nodded. Designed to be. But I was given a choice that made her pause. What choice? To betray my code. Drop us if you believe free will can exist in even the unlikeliest minds. Droppa, if you've ever stared at a version of yourself and not recognized it. The doppelganger led them deeper. What they found wasn't a fortress. It was a lab. Not for tech. For ethics. Burnhouse had been training. A is based on human template Spectre. Agents, learning their decisions, mimicking their fears. Not to replace them, but to predict them. Cassidy found a console covered in her own footage, actual footage. Missions, rescues, failures. Tagged and broken down by a machine who wanted to know what she would do. Because the next Cassidy Vale Burnhouse built wouldn't just look like her. It would think like her. Daniel stepped away, breath shallow. It's not AI, it's a synthetic conscience. And it's unkillable, Rook whispered. No, Cassidy said. It just hasn't been challenged. She walked into the mainframe chamber, plugged in the disruptor node from Solstice, Drift, loaded every contradiction Burnhouse had ever committed, and forced the system to reconcile. Within minutes, it began to fail, not technically, philosophically. The synthetic Cassidy stuttered. Error, protocol conflict, moral redundancy, invalid loyalty loop. Cassidy stepped closer. You built me to follow patterns. But I've never been predictable. The AI flickered. Then what are you? I'm me. She pulled the kill switch. And Burnhouse the real. One died screaming. To be continued. Droppa, if the synthetic mind collapse shook you. Droppa, if you're ready for Cassidy to rebuild what they tried to steal. The silence that followed was not peace. It was vacuum. The Burnhouse mainframe collapsed like a house of mirrors dropped from orbit. Systems blinked out. Servers sparked. The synthetic version of Cassidy froze mid-syllable, face twitching into stillness. Then the lights cut entirely. Darkness. Cassidy stood motionless, eyes adjusting. 1 second. 2. Then a low hum beneath the floor. Rook whispered. That's not just shutdown. That's something else. Cassidy backed up, pulling him and her father toward the corridor. Failsafe. From the walls, vents opened. Gas hissed. She slammed an override key into the control panel beside the exit. The door didn't open it. Fought. Daniel threw his shoulder into it. Rook kicked from below. Cassidy wedged a pry bar between the seam and twisted. And the door gave. They dove through as the room erupted in blue flame. Droppa, if you felt that heat. Droppa, if you've ever had to race against a machine turning hostile. They didn't stop running until they reached the cold bird. By then, the entire structure was groaning. Something deep underground had begun to collapse. Cassidy didn't wait for confirmation. She lifted off manually, pushing the engines past cold start limits. The ship climbed fast. Below them, the Burnhouse facility folded in on itself, a long-forgotten god curling back into its grave. Rook slumped against the wall, panting. Daniel sat beside him, rifle across his lap, and Cassidy flew. The white noise of the Arctic faded behind them. Back on the Spectre rig, Wynn met them at the hangar, her eyes locked onto Cassidy's. It's over? Cassidy shook her head. It's changed. Wynn frowned, meaning? Cassidy walked past her, straight to the central console, and inserted a coded chip. Footage on SPOOLED. The synthetic Cassidy final moments. The system collapse. The philosophical implosion. Cassidy's voice played back. You built me to follow patterns, but I've never been predictable. Wynn stared. Sims leaned forward slowly. You didn't just destroy Burnhouse. You taught the system to question itself, Cassidy exhaled. The only way to kill a lie that believes it's the truth. Is to show it who it isn't. Droppa, if that shook something deeper than code. Droppa, if you believe even machines shouldn't be above accountability. The fallout was global. Civilian networks picked up fragments of the collapsed. Old Spectre files long hidden surfaced like wreckage after a shipwreck. Headlines blinked. Across world feeds, governments investigate ghost warfare architecture. Who was Cassidy Vale? Is AI becoming too human or not human enough? Cassidy didn't flinch. She recorded a final message, neutral background, plain tone. Her real voice. To those who asked if I was too small, too soft, too fragile, thank you. You helped me build the silence I needed. And to those still hiding behind the walls you built with names and machines, you're out of places to run. She uploaded it. And walked away. For 3 days, Spectre slept. No operations, Just breath. Reconstruction. Morning. Celebration in whispers. Cassidy stayed mostly alone. She walked the decks, practiced trigger resets, cleaned her gear, relabeled her. Med kit. Then one morning, Daniel found her on the training pad. You don't sit still. Neither did you. He held out a small box. Inside, a coin. Blackened silver. Spectre's first-generation mark. Hers now. She held it without speaking. And understood. The next day, a message arrived from Oversight. Encrypted. Short. We are restructuring. Spectre must become something new. Your leadership is requested. Cassidy didn't smile. She just whispered, about damn time. She addressed the team in the hangar. No medals. No banners. Just facts. We're not ghosts anymore. We're not machines. We're people who've survived the deepest betrayal a system can commit, forgetting what it's for. She met every eye. From here on, Spectre walks in the open. We will not vanish. We will not fake our deaths. And we will never again allow someone to write our names without our permission. They stood with her, even the injured, even the retired, even the once lost. Drop a if you believe in reclaiming legacy. Drop a if you've ever had to step into a role because no one else could. Weeks passed. The world didn't become perfect. But it began asking better questions. Cassidy trained new Spectre cadets not for silence, but for action. She taught them trauma triage, infiltration, decryption, and how to make decisions machines couldn't model. At night, she walked the old catwalks where Mira once stood. She sometimes whispered names to the wind. Myra. Solstice. Echo. Bu. Rnhou. Wessie. Then she whispered one last name, Cassidy Vale, just to remind herself it still meant something. To be continued. Drop a if you feel the finish line coming. Drop a if you do it all again to protect the truth. The sea was calm. From the newly built Spectre observation deck, Cassidy watched the horizon stretch into haze. No battles today, no beacons calling her back into fire. Just the hum of the rig below and the soft wind across the rail. Her hands gripped the edge, knuckles pale, because the quiet didn't mean rest. It meant the next choice was hers. Inside, the core command room glowed with life. Not alarms, not threats. Just data, recovery, stability. Sim sat at the central console with Yaz cross-checking satellite relay signatures. Rook stood near the holotable, skimming over restructured field teams. Wynn was briefing two incoming cadets, their faces tense but attentive. Daniel was absent, his choice. After everything, he'd requested time to rebuild away from the noise. Cassidy had hugged him hard enough to leave bruises. He just smiled. I'll always be your first backup. Now the weight fell squarely on her shoulders, and it felt right. Drop a if you've ever become the mentor you never had. Drop a if you know peace comes not when war ends, but when you decide to rebuild. They called the initiative Phoenix. Reclassify Spectre under transparent international oversight. Phase out autonomous AI decision networks. Institute ethical frameworks bound to human judgment. First, Cassidy wasn't just leading. She was rewriting the mission. Every cadet who walked through the reinforced gate carried a simple oath. Protect truth, not just security. It was radical. And necessary. But Burnhouse hadn't been the only ghost in the dark. New reports came in daily, minor echoes from former collaborators. No full systems remained, but small cells. Digital shells of synthetic command logic hiding inside third-party infrastructures. Cassidy read them all, then marked each one for manual. Resolution. Not drone strike, not denial, extraction, testimony. DISASEMBL. Y. Truth by hand. One afternoon, she got a message. Encrypted. Marked red reticle. She hadn't seen that phrase since her early years. It meant eyes on you. She showed it to Rook. He went still. You think it's internal? Cassidy shrugged. Doesn't matter. Whoever it is wants me to know they're watching. Rook leaned in. Then we give them a show. Phoenix issued its first public demonstration. That month. Not military. Rescue. A chemical fire in northern Norway. Cassidy deployed a 3-person team to extract trapped civilians after local forces were overwhelmed. The team included 1 trainee. They succeeded. Footage went public. No masks. No secrets. Just real people doing the work the shadows used to swallow. Drop a if you've ever had to walk into the flames instead of around them. Drop us if you know that mercy sometimes speaks louder than muscle. Cassidy received another message, red reticle. This time, a line of text. You're soft now. She ignored it until the footage arrived, drone capture. From above, training yard. Her alone, running combat drills. Tagged, time-stamped, logged. Too close. She called Win. How'd they breach perimeter surveillance? They didn't. Win said after reviewing the scan. This was captured from inside. Someone here. Or someone you trusted. Cassidy breathed slowly. Then we flushed them. Drop us you've ever had to rebuild even the walls you thought were safe. Drop a if you know betrayal often slithers closest to the chest. She didn't launch a witch hunt. She rewrote the surveillance protocols, installed analog systems into every perimeter post, banned remote biometric logging. Then she did what Burnhouse never would have done. She told everyone, "We've been compromised," she said in open assembly. "I don't know who. I may never know. But we will not answer shadow with shadow. We'll answer with vigilance and visibility." She stepped down from the platform. And invited questions. Not a single one came. Not from fear. From trust. Weeks passed. No more read reticle messages. But Cassidy didn't relax. She started training with 2 cadets on tailing and exposure, the art of finding who's watching. Without letting them know you've found them. She taught them how to stay soft in a world built to harden you. She taught them how to think like the ones who'd once tried to erase her, and how to dismantle them with empathy and precision. One night, she found a sealed envelope on her cot. No markings. No signature. Inside, a single Polaroid, her and her father. In Cairo 10 years ago, back when she still believed she wasn't enough. On the back, still watching. Still wrong. She smiled and burned the photo. To be continued. Drop a if you feel the next reveal building. Drop a if you're ready to stand between truth and whatever's coming next. The training yard was still when Cassidy stepped onto the gravel. Dawn hadn't cracked yet. The floodlights were off. No surveillance, just moonlight, breeze, and the sound of boots on stone. She stood alone with the memory of every mission. Every betrayal, every name that once doubted her. Too small. Too soft, too fragile. They were wrong. And now the world knew it. Inside, Spectre's new heart pulsed steadily. Phoenix had grown 8 field agents, 22 cadets, a skeleton operations crew that ran lean, honest, and efficient. No hidden hierarchies. No black vaults. Just people, trained to save. Prepared to act. Commanded by someone who never asked. To lead but refused to let the truth fall. Cassidy reviewed reports. A counterinsurgency cell disbanded peacefully in Moldova. An ex-Burnhouse lab in Manila surrendered their AI core without resistance. A false flag cyber-attic in Helsinki was preempted by Phoenix. Intelligence. Wins. Small. But stacking. Then came the final ripple. A signal, untraceable, encrypted through dead satellites. Win brought it in. We're not sure where it originated, but it's Spectre legacy code, pre-oversight. Cassidy read the metadata. Cody name, Temple Run. Rook stepped in. Never heard of it. Daniel's voice came over the coms behind them. I have. Cassidy turned. What is it? His tone darkened. It's what Burnhouse was built on. Drop us if you've followed every breadcrumb this far. Drop a if you know some secret survived just long enough to be UNBUR, IED. Daniel. Arrived via Spectre Blackbird before nightfall. No formal uniform. Just his coat. The one with 4 bullet patches and a stitched Spectre. Sigil faded into the shoulder. They sat alone in the command room. Temple Run was the original program, he said. Long before Spectre had its name, before oversight. It was just a theory. Can you map a human soul using choices under pressure? Cassidy frowned. You were part of it. Daniel nodded. Not by choice. I was the first test subject. They never told me. You passed. I failed. I ran. Cassidy reached across the table and still came back. Only because they turned the question onto you. The signal carried data. A location. Iceland. Old NATO relay base. Decommissioned in 1998. Now flagged for geothermal disruption. Civilian surveys blocked by military protocol, no agency claimed. Phoenix had no formal charter to act. Cassidy geared up anyway. She told no one. But they followed. Her Rook, Wynn, Yaz, Sims, and 2 cadets who'd never known the old war, but chose to walk into its last. Embers, they flew dark, landed in a snowstorm, hiked 4 miles on foot, and found the base. Still powered. Still alive. Drop if you felt that wind in your chest. Drop if you'd pack everything to chase closure. The base interior was silent. No guards. No cameras. Just hums. Soft and rhythmic. At the heart. A room with no doors. Only light. They entered. Inside, an old woman sat in a chair. One screen. Before her, dozens behind. She looked up. Her eyes were gray. Her voice even. I wondered if you'd come. Cassidy stepped forward. Who are you? The woman smiled. I'm the archivist. My job was to keep the question alive, Rook murmured. Temple Run. The archivist nodded. You were always meant to arrive here. Not just you, anyone who chose not to become what they were told to be. Cassidy's hands flexed. Then what is this? A record. Every test, every failure, every synthetic, every success. Yaz pointed to the screens. That's us. The archivist nodded. And the choice is yours. Drop if you believe memory can be weapon and shield. Drop if you think history's not just what we remember, but what we carry. The room held 1 console. 1 button. Delete. Cassidy stared at it. Wynn asked, if we erase it, what happens? We become myth, the archivist said. No proof, no trail. Burnhouse stays dead. But so does the evidence of how far they got, and if we let it live. Cassidy asked. The woman met her gaze. Then you carry it. And the next one must too. The room pulsed with silence. Cassidy stepped forward, laid her palm on the console, then turned. No. Wynn blinked. No, we don't erase it. We own it. We guard it. We teach from it. She looked at the cadets. This isn't our burden. It's our library. The screens flickered. Shifted. Showed her face. But not the synthetic. Her. Cassidy. Vale, the girl they underestimated. The woman who carried a Colonel 6 miles under fire. The ghost they couldn't replicate. The commander who chose truth over silence. They walked out into the morning. Wind sharp. Sky clean. And behind them, Temple Run went dark. Not destroyed. Archived. At Spectre's request. By Phoenix Authority. Guarded by choice, not secrecy. Back at the rig, Cassidy stood on the deck as a new recruit jogged up. Ma'am? They want your approval on the new code name for the AI ethics protocol. Cassidy raised a brow. They're naming it? Yes, ma'am. Said it needed to be personal. Cassidy smiled. What's the name? The cadet grinned. Too fragile. Cassidy laughed hard. Then nodded. Approved. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.